started Chordplay, and this is Dreamy Chords, and this lesson is going to focus on these atmospheric and open-ended, dreamlike sounds that you hear in music. You can find this in classical and jazz, pop, rock, and prog rock, and post-rock, and metal, acoustic music. There's a whole bunch of places you can find this very kind of, science fiction and very interesting and almost eerie kind of sound of music. And it really does give this dreamy kind of haze, when you hear some of these sounds of music. And this goes back to the Beatles, Pink Floyd. There's a whole bunch of bands, Rush, Police, even Van Halen and groups like that. So there's tons, you can learn from kind of tapping into some of these really unique, chord sounds on the guitar. So with these dreamy chords, it's really more the chord voicing than the actual chord, itself. And, the voicing of the chord is very important, and that's really where you're just kind of reworking the order of notes in a chord. So here's an image with the definition of chord voicings, just to help you understand what we're talking about here. Aside from the key and the type of chord you've selected, and then also the voicing that you're using of that chord, the other important aspect for this dreamlike, guitar world, I guess, is the tone you're using. So the image I shared earlier, this lesson's 100% clean, and I'm talking about the clean tone, on my amp, not my mouth. And there's no foul language here, but clean tone with my amp, and then also there's certain effects that you can incorporate that's really going to accentuate that dreamlike, sound. Delay is really important, where you create this really long kind of, just spacious sound. Definitely Pink Floyd and Van Halen. There's a ton of bands and groups and guitarists that have used delay and created these dreamlike sounds. Modulation effects are important. You could use chorus, you could use very, moderate flange, phaser, univibes, vibrato, tremolo, anything that's going to kind of give it a little bit of movement or this kind of, modulation, definitely. Reverb's also important. You don't want to cake on too much reverb because you don't want it to sound like a cave, but you do want a little bit of room, in your tone. So, watch out for setting, too much reverb, because you don't want the rockabilly surf guitar kind of reverb sound, but a little bit of reverb does go a long way. So before we dive into the music, let's actually talk about chord voicings and also this tone and effects that I've mentioned too. And, to get started here, I'm going to start with tone to get that out of the way, because I am going to use a very similar sound, throughout this lesson. And, this is my amp without any of the pedals on my pedal board activated. So it's a clean tone, there's a little bit of reverb and a little bit of delay like this. But there's my clean tone. You can kind of hear this like a delay, like one kind of repeat and some reverb in there. Now if I kick on the univibe, that's going to give it a little bit of the swirly, modulation. And then I'm also going to kick on the echo sex, which is going to basically create another delay. And that's going to have the delay that's on my amp and the echo sex delay. It's going to kind of bounce and ping pong and kind of fight. And that creates this really dreamlike sound. Something like that. So what we're going to do now is talk about chord voicings. So I've selected this A minor 7 right here, which, just kind of picking or strumming through it with the effects I have turned on. It does sound kind of dreamy, but that's not really dreamy enough. That's kind of straightforward. So let's look at the, another place of playing that chord. So that's also A minor 7, but it's still not really dreamy enough. Let's find another way of playing that chord. Let's try it like this. And that definitely has a dreamier kind of sound. In my ear, it really wants it to move to that F sharp right there and kind of go to like D7 over A. My ear can already anticipate that little movement right there. A minor 7 again. Now if we look at that chord shape, we can actually move The fretted portion there on the G and the B, move that over another set of strings, and that's also A minor 7, but a different voicing. You know, it noticeably sounds different than the other one, this one. Just move those two over. And right there you can see, you know, I mean, firsthand how important and how different these chord voicings actually sound. Continue up, you know, there's another one right here. So that's basically A minor 7 right there. There's your A, there's C, G, A, and E on top. And you can find these all over the place, which is really, really cool. With the opening, that of course is the very famous Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds from the Beatles, and probably one of the first, you know, dreamlike sounds that really captured, you know, public attention and radio and the charts and everything. But I think that's, you know, like I said, one of the earliest, you know, as far as pop and rock. And, you know, it's this. They just freaked out because it sounds like this haunted, you know, music box or a jewelry box or something. It's underwater, you know, and it has this very dreamy, you know, flavor and sound. So this, and I'm just finger picking for this, but there's basically an A5, and that's going to move to this partial A7. And then this is like F sharp minor 7 over A. And then this is almost like D minor major 7. Because you definitely have minor, you know, for D minor, but then you're also playing that C sharp. You know, almost a little bit of that D minor major 7 flavor, but just a second of it. And then you're going to move down to this kind of partial F major. It's like F major over A, and then you just kind of cycle through that. I am using the Univibe with kind of a tremolo setting where you've got that kind of warble, you know, like this. You know, a timeless classic example of these dreamlike chords I was talking about. So the undisputed kings of dreamy music and dreamlike, you know, chords and progressions and songs, of course, is Pink Floyd, and I'm a huge Floyd fan. And the very first Chordplay episode on this channel was the chords of Pink Floyd. And we looked at part of, you know, Shine On You Crazy Diamond in that lesson. But I'm going to go a little bit further, you know, just to kind of flesh this out and be a little more complete. But Pink Floyd, you know, and we've talked about them, you know, they actually have 2 Chordplay, you know, episodes on this channel. Also, David Gilmour has a 3-for-all. So there's definitely more Floyd on the way. But think of songs like Us and Them, you know, from Dark Side of the Moon. Like a dream. I mean, it really does. It has this just ethereal, very sleepy, and very interesting sound. But with Shine On You Crazy Diamond, which is the song we're actually looking at here, you know, it actually starts with this. And you hear this 4-note motif, you know, from this chord, and that's a B flat 13 flat 5, if we're thinking of B flat as the root. You know, really beautiful chord. B flat 13 flat 5. But then during the course of that song, you actually hear that root note change from B flat to C. And then you also hear that bass note or root note move down to this G. Which that's basically like a Holdsworth chord now, you know, if we play it that way. Which Gilmour did not play that in the song. But I really do like that kind of moving bass note. It creates a really cool Crazy Diamond, we've got, guitar 1, which is doing this. So there's guitar 1, and then guitar 2 is playing triads on top, like this. So there's a C triad, on top of that chord. And then eventually you'll hear it move down to that. And when it moves to that G power chord, you hear that intro part again, but then you hear this little piece of G minor 7, like this. And I love how those two parts kind of fit together like a puzzle. Depending on if it's the major, C major, which that's like a C11, and that's like a G minor 13, played that way against that chord. It's so cool. I love that. For another place where you can find these dreamy chords, check out the song Is This Love from Whitesnake. And while this isn't one of my favorite songs from that album, I prefer, Crying in the Rain or Bad Boys or one of those songs. But definitely Is This Love has a lot of dreamy chords like this. So it starts as kind of flirting with this E minor. He's hitting harmonics. Along the 7th fret there on the D, B, and then the G string. And then you're doing this. So right there, that's like a little piece of E minor add 9. And then you're doing this. So that's a C sus2 sharp 11. So think of kind of the, C sus2 that lives right here. Very common in acoustic and strumming, songs. But take that major 3rd, and you're going to flip it over here to the raised 11th, or sharp 11. And that creates that really, kind of mysterious sound. So a C sus2 sharp 11. And then he does another series of harmonics. More harmonics. Descending progression, it's like a partial E minor to D to C to G, and then an F sus2 to F major, all the way through. Another band known for their dreamlike, intros and interludes and outros and moments in their music, of course, is Rush, and I'm a huge Rush fan. And I think we've already featured this in one of the Rush Chordplay episodes, but this is like my favorite Rush song, and it really does, kind of capture this dreamlike, sound of music. But that's from Xanadu. It's like a section during the intro, this part. And I'm playing it that way just so I can slide into the next chord, which that's basically an F sharp 7 add 11, and then you're kind of picking through it after you strum it. So F sharp 7 add 11 right there, and then you hear it move higher, and that's like a B11 to a A add 9 right there. example of these dreamlike sounds and tonalities of music, check out the song Pull Me Under from Dream Theater. And we have looked at parts of this song. It was actually the interlude in another lesson, but now we're going to actually just look at the intro part, the very famous intro. And it's all partial chords, but you've got this. So it's all implied chords, and it starts here. So you're literally just grabbing a part of E minor 11. You're grabbing the low E, this A note, and then the open G. So it's just 3 notes of that chord, but just enough to imply it. And then you're going to imply this E minor add 9 right there, which we just had that a second ago, you know, in the Whitesnake tune. But right there, you're just playing the F sharp and then the open G with that low E open. And then you're going to move over to this E minor 6, so grab that C sharp right there. And then it's like a little piece of E augmented, like raised 5th with that, you know, it's going to basically be B sharp technically. You might want to think of that as a C, but we are raising the 5th, so there's B natural raised to B sharp. And then there's like a little piece of D6 right here. You're actually going to end with this, and that's like an F, an F sharp 11, just 3 notes of that chord. But then what you hear John do after that, once he establishes just the raw, you know, guitar part, then he starts playing the high E and B open like this. Definitely sounds like you're in a dream. Last example is the very famous Cathedral from Van Halen's Diver Down. And I know the first time I ever heard this, I thought it was a keyboard or an organ or something. I didn't realize it was a guitar. And then when I saw, you know, footage of Van Halen playing this, it blew my mind. I thought, what is he doing? But he's using volume swells in this intro and these really interesting kind of stacked chords. Something like this. They were definitely doing volume swells, so you're going to roll your volume all the way off, and then the first chord, it's basically C major 7 over G, but watch out for the high E string. You don't want to play up there. It's just the bottom 5 strings. So strum it, and then swell your volume control on your guitar, like swell your volume all the way up. And then go to F major and do the same thing. Repeat that C major 7 over G again. And then a C5 power chord, and then this is a B sus4. Repeat that first part again, C major 7 over G to F, C major 7 over G, C5, and then just end on D5. And then that moves into the main part of the Cathedral, which that's also built entirely of chords. But I just wanted to look at this first part because I think those swells are so cool. That's going to wrap this episode of Chordplay with Dreamy Chords, and you can definitely find these, you know, type of chords and these sounds and tonalities floating around in hundreds, if not thousands, of songs. So I did kind of pick some of my favorites, either songs or bands or voicings, but you can literally find this almost everywhere. So feel free to leave some more, suggestions or song ideas, in the comments section. And please leave some feedback and comments, subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content material. Thank you.